So Apple is closing a unionized Apple store, and I could have told you this would probably happen. For those of you who have been listening to the channel for some time, I know people accuse us of being anti-union or rooting for the union busters. No, actually that is not the case. What we've been saying is when you unionize, you are more expensive. And companies will look for a reason to get rid of you when you're more expensive because it's all about maximizing profit. So we're going to talk about this. This is a kind of an FAFO situation for the Apple employees that unionized. And look, Apple is actually one of the healthiest companies on the planet right now. They are flush with cash, but it doesn't mean they want to give it to you because they're still a for-profit corporation. So let's talk about this. Before we get into it any further, please subscribe for more pop culture news, views, and rants, guys. This is Kneon. This is Apple. This is the utter situation right now. A lot of retail workers trying to unionize, thinking it's going to save their jobs. And as an old dog, I'm telling you again, it puts the target on your back. I've seen it happen before. I'm not saying people shouldn't push for more rights or whatever at their workplace, but you always have the option of leaving. You always have the option of going someplace else, and then these companies, it will be their responsibility to give you a better offer to get you back or to hire the best talent and retain the best talent. But yeah, a lot of people unionize thinking they're irreplaceable, and nobody's irreplaceable, right? This comes from the Washington Times. America's first unionized Apple store is closing, and the union is calling foul. The Apple Store in Towson, Maryland is the first of the tech giant's U.S. shops to unionize, and it's being closed down in June. Apple told the Baltimore Sun on Thursday that the store, along with ones in Trumbull, Connecticut, and one in California, will close on June 11th. As we continue investing to expand and enhance our retail stores and offerings worldwide, we remain deliberate about evaluating our existing locations to ensure we can meet our customers' needs in the best way. Following the departure of several retailers in declining conditions, we made the difficult decision to close our stores at these locations. That's interesting. Declining conditions, huh? How bad is it there? It's Baltimore, right? The Towson Apple Store employs about 90 people. Those workers organized into the Coalition of Organized Retail Employees in, 2022. And they reached a 3-year collective bargaining agreement with Apple in 2024. The only other unionized Apple store is located in Oklahoma City. That store remains open for business. Well, I don't think Oklahoma City is quite the shit show that Baltimore has become, right? The employees can only reapply for whatever Apple jobs are available, according to Bloomberg. The union said it will try to fight Apple's closure of the Towson location. The union is outraged by Apple's decision. Apple's claim that the collective bargaining agreement prevents relocation is simply false and raises serious concerns that this closure is a cynical attempt to bust a union. We're all exploring the legal options and will work with elected officials and allies to hold Apple accountable. Good luck with that. Yeah, so this happened with Starbucks too, if I remember correctly. A lot of times what happens is they will find a convenient excuse to get rid of the unionized employees and then replace them with non-union workers. The reason they're probably not offering them jobs, lining up to offer them jobs at other Apple locations is they know they're going to probably start a union there too. And then the next thing you know, all the Apple Store workers across the country are going to be unionized, and they're going to have to pay them a lot more, and they're going to have to fight a lot harder to fire them. And companies don't like this. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm not trying to be a dick. I'm not trying to be a douchebag. I'm just saying this is how these companies think. And if you think being unionized is going to help your case any current year, it does not. Okay, look at Hollywood. Double strikes, right? They asked for the moon. And how many unemployed Hollywood writers are there now? How many unemployed actors? Quite a few. A lot of people out of work in Hollywood because they thought, well, we're gonna twist the studio's arm and they're gonna have to do what we want. And then the next time the negotiations rolled around, the WGA, the Writers Guild, they folded almost immediately. There was no talk of a strike because they know the ball is no longer in their court. Right. And that's the thing. When the ball's in your court, you have more bargaining posture. You have more bargaining, more of a bargaining position. But if you're just selling Apple stuff and people can buy Apple stuff online and even in Walmart now, you're going to have a lot harder time. A lot of people very disappointed in Apple these days. They thought Apple was a different company. They thought Apple was a company of hipsters and progressives. And then you've got Tim Cook standing behind Trump at the inauguration. It's like, oh no, sunshine, you don't understand. Apple is a for-profit corporation. And honestly, Steve Jobs, if he were around today, would probably kick your ass. He would. Everything I've known about Steve Jobs, it's kind of the same with Walt Disney, like the dead founder of a company becomes this like mythical Colonel Sanders type mascot, but the real person was a lot more complicated. And Steve Jobs, yeah, he liked the Beatles. Yeah, he agreed with some progressive policies, but he was definitely a businessman. He was definitely a businessman, and he was a hard ass too. Everything I've heard is the guy demanded excellence, and if you didn't make the cut, you were gone. And I don't think he would have been on board with this either. So this happened to Ubisoft too. Ubisoft unionized, and what was it, like the day after? I think no, just a couple of weeks after they voted to unionize. I think it was a day after their union was recognized. They shut the studio down. Companies will do this. I was at a company, I've told this story before. I was at a company that the owner of the company debated selling off half of the company just to get rid of the unionized employees because he didn't want to deal with them. The pressman, I worked for a commercial printer, and he had two divisions of his company. He had editorial, he had, the publishing side of it, which is where I worked. And then he had the commercial press operation. And we published a bunch of like big magazines, newspapers and stuff like that. And the pressmen unionized. And they were already like the highest paid pressmen in that part of the state, but they unionized, they wanted more money. And so he was like, yeah, I'm just going to sell off that half of the company to somebody else, and they can just reset the terms of employment. And that's exactly what happened. He was so pissed off about it. He's like, I don't even want to deal with these people. This guy was like in his 70s. He's like, I don't want to deal with the unions. I'm not going to deal with the unions. And that's it. And I keep telling people that. Right? They act like we're like, you're anti-union. I'm like, no, I'm pro self-preservation. Right? You're better off having a job. And if you're not happy at that job, go find another job. Right? But trying to force your employer to change never works, especially if they're a megacorp that has money coming out of their ears. Right? They said, yeah, despite the closures, this is coming from QZ.com. And so despite the closures, 9 to 5 Mac reports Apple's retail footprint has been growing. Over the past year, the company launched 11 stores globally and renovated or replaced 14 more, with domestic activity alone accounting for 2 openings and 8 upgrades. See also Starbucks. A lot of Starbucks were closing down in areas that were decrepit, basically, declining. And also they were shutting down Starbucks, I think, where the employees unionized. But they're building Starbucks. At least here in the Pittsburgh area, they're building more Starbucks. So it's a you problem. They're getting rid of you. They're going out of their way to get rid of you. Of course, Blue Sky, they've got more perfect union. Apple's closing down the first of its U.S. stores to unionize. Apple says it's because of the collective bargaining agreement with these workers. They couldn't offer to transfer them to nearby locations. The union's outraged and exploring options to hold Apple accountable. Well, good luck with that. It's not going to work. It's not going to work. Yeah, and they know how to do this. Same with like Image Comics. I was shocked when they had that whole unionization attempt. It was like all the office workers are like, we're going to unionize. I'm like, yeah, you're going to have a job. Apple's closing its first union store, says Sarah Blade. It looks like union busting because they aren't transferring the workers to other stores, as they are with 2 non-union stores closing at the same time. So yeah, so there are non-union stores closing. They're going to transfer them. They don't want the unionized workers. They know you're going to be a pain in the ass. They don't want you. They're changing their number. They're not taking your calls. Apple is closing a unionized store, and the union's outraged, according to Mac Rumors. Yeah, they're union busting. Can't imagine why, right? So anyway, let's wrap this one up. Please subscribe for more pop culture news, views, and rants, guys. We'll talk later.